Chapter 8. Just the Beginning.
What do you mean, Skylar? What are you thinking?
That you're attracted to her, Skylar admitted, her words catching in her throat. And it scares me. You say it's just business, but I fear it's more than that, she confessed. With her in the picture, it's like the stakes are higher. Irvin chuckled softly, earning a sharp glare from Skylar. What's so funny? She snapped. He looked at her with a teasing twinkle in his eyes.
What stakes? Why do you feel the need to compete? We broke up 5 years ago.
Skylar's jaw dropped, and for a moment, all the tension seemed to slip away. Oh, really? Thanks for the reminder, Irvin. Tell me again how I'm holding on to a 5-year-old breakup like it's some kind of trophy. Irvin studied her, his smirk wavering as if he had just stepped on a shaky bridge.
I didn't mean it like that, but you have to admit, it's been ages since we split. Are you still caught up in this rivalry? Because you think I want Janet as a co-star and something more?
He probed, watching her reaction. Your next girlfriend, yeah! She added, crossing her arms defiantly. Because why not? I mean, you've practically handed her the keys to your heart and your script.
Okay, hold on,
Irvin exclaimed, throwing his hands up as if warding off an unseen attack.
You're making it sound like I called her up myself and asked her to join the cast for my top secret lair.
Skylar couldn't help but laugh despite herself. Well, the way things effortlessly fall into place for Janet, it's almost suspicious. His expression turned more thoughtful.
Okay. Seriously, I'm sorry for how all this went down, but don't think too much. You're relevant. You always have been. And Janet? She's great, sure, but she's not.
Irvin hesitated, realizing he was a little too honest about his feelings toward Skylar.
You.
Skylar's heart sank. Not me? I'm not even worth the comparison?
Wait, what?
Irvin asked, bewildered, unsure why Skylar seemed so confused. If I had a nickel for every time you told that to the universe after you left, I'd be rich enough to fund my own film without Janet.
I promise that's not what I meant.
Irvin quickly interjected, trying to diffuse any misunderstanding.
If this is about comparing you both, Janet's just a part of the equation now.
The equation? Sorry, that's hard to digest when I can practically see her name in neon lights. Janet. The new It girl takes the title. Skylar threw her hands dramatically as if tossing glitter into the air. Might as well throw a gala in her honor while we're at it.
Hey, stop with the glitter,
Irvin pleaded, grabbing her wrists.
Let me try again.
Irvin closed the gap between them, his hands resting on her shoulders. As he locked eyes with her smoky gaze, just a reminder, Skylar still remained in full ghost makeup all this time.
If we're comparing, the name in neon lights would be Skyler. And I'm not just throwing glitter. I'm unleashing a confetti cannon.
Skylar felt warmth rush to her cheeks, and the tension between them shifted, teetering on the edge of something unsaid yet profound. Irvin, she began, her breath catching as anticipation brewed.
And if anyone's forgotten that fact,
he continued, his voice dropping to a softer, more intimate tone.
It's not me.
Skylar's heart skipped a beat, the weight of his words sinking in. The space between them seemed to narrow, charged with unspoken emotions. She swallowed, her voice barely a whisper as she replied, What are you trying to say, Irvin? His eyes locked onto hers with an intensity that made her pulse quicken.
I'm saying that you should go wash up. Your image is killing the mood.
He let her go. Skylar's mood came crashing down like a crashing mirror. She rolled her eyes, but a small smile tugged at her lips as she realized she was still in her ghost image. I should head back now.
It's late. Stay here for tonight,
Irvin commanded. Skylar sneered. What if somebody sees us in one room? Can you bear the consequences? Irvin leaned forward, face almost touching hers.
I'm doing you a favor. I'm saving you a trip from going back and forth. What if Janet comes back?
Skylar raised an eyebrow, her smile growing as she leaned back slightly to put some distance between them. So now you're worried about Janet? She teased, crossing her arms. I didn't know you were so considerate. Irvin chuckled, not missing a beat.
It's not about Janet, Skylar. It's about you. You've been haunting this place all day. You're exhausted, and you need rest.
His tone was softer now, the teasing edge gone as concern crept into his voice.
Just stay. No one's going to see us. And even if they do, I can handle it.
And if I scared Janet off? She asked, half joking, but with a hint of genuine concern. Irvin smiled, his gaze softening as he reached out to gently touch her shoulder.
Then I'll just have to explain that a guardian spirit is watching over me.
Skylar let out a small laugh, feeling the tension in her shoulders ease. Guardian spirit, huh? That's a new one?
Yeah, well, I guess I'm just full of surprises.
Irvin replied, his smile widening.
So, what do you say? Stay here tonight and we can both rest easy. I'll sleep on the sofa.
She bit her lip, considering his offer one last time before finally nodding. All right, you win. And if anyone catches us, I would like to see how you handle it, Irvin. As Skylar began to stand up, Irvin reached out and gently grabbed her arm, keeping her in place. His fingers brushed against her forehead, smudging it slightly.
Did the essential oil help with your headache?
He asked, his voice calm and familiar. Skylar blinked, taken aback by the question. What?
Nothing. Go ahead.
Irvin said, releasing her arm with a small, almost shy smile. Skylar's eyes widened as realization dawned on her. Wait, were you that gentleman from the airplane? Oh my gosh, my very own personal hero. Irvin chuckled, a hint of embarrassment coloring his cheeks.
Just go wash up.
Skylar lingered for a moment, throwing him a few playful, teasing glances before finally disappearing into the bathroom, the door clicking softly shut behind her. A morning breeze blushes the crew's faces as they set up to film an outdoor scene facing the snowy mountains. The weather was chilly, and the sun was hiding behind clouds, making the footage look extremely beautiful in camera. Irvin and Steven flipped through the script as Janet, Peter, and Emily came rushing in, eyes widening in chaos.
Director Irvin!
Peter yelled. Steven smiled brightly.
Miss Amari, there you are. Irvin and I were just wondering when you will be here.
Janet ignored Steven and looked at Irvin.
Irvin, about last night.
Irvin looked up from the script, catching Janet's anxious expression.
What about last night?
He asked, his tone measured, though a flicker of curiosity crossed his features. Janet hesitated, glancing at Peter and Emily for support.
We saw something, Irvin, in your room.
She began, her voice trembling slightly.
Something non-human. It wasn't just our imagination. It felt real, and it was terrifying.
Irvin's brows furrowed.
What did you see?
Peter chimed in, his voice still shaky from the experience.
We saw it, whatever it was. It felt like something out of a nightmare. It told us to leave or join it.
Irvin's expression remained unwavering as he glanced at Steven, who looked oddly confused.
Wait, what happened last night, Irvin?
Emily joined in.
We barely made it out of there. I know it sounds crazy, but Director Irvin, your room is haunted.
Steven glanced at Irvin, awaiting an explanation, while the rest exchanged uneasy glances.
Haunted?
Janet nodded vigorously.
Yes, haunted. There was this thing. It was like a ghost, but it felt so real, so menacing. We thought we were going to die.
Irvin shrugged it off.
I slept completely fine last night.
Peter and Emily exchanged nervous and confused glances before Peter spoke up.
Irvin, we're not lying!
Irvin nodded, though his mind was elsewhere.
All right. Maybe it's just a rough start to the morning. You know how it goes. We'll talk about this later. Let's focus on the shoot for now.
He began to walk away, with Stephen following in confusion, leaving Janet, Peter, and Emily standing there in disbelief. Janet stared after Irvin, her mind racing.
Am I still dreaming? How can we not be taken seriously?
Peter sighed and gently urged Janet toward the makeup room.
Let's just get ready, Janet. We'll bring it up with Irvin later.
Just then, a sudden commotion nearby caught their attention. The cast and crew were rushing excitedly toward someone who had just arrived.
Huh?
Peter muttered.
Is there a celebrity here? Who could be more important than Janet Amari?
As the crowd parted, the person came into view, almost like a slow-motion reveal in a movie. It was Skylar. Janet's face went pale, her eyes widening in shock.
Skylar?
Who?
Peter asked, but Janet didn't hear him. Her heart and mind were in turmoil, swirling like a tornado. Irvin approached Skylar, his expression unreadable, and Janet's heart began to race. Her legs suddenly felt unsteady. When Irvin placed a hand on Skylar's shoulder, then turned and walked away, Janet could only watch in stunned silence. Then, Skylar's gaze locked onto hers. Janet's breath caught in her throat as Skylar continued to approach, each step bringing her closer to a past Janet had toward this girl. Time had done nothing to diminish Skylar's presence. If anything, it had only made her more striking. The aura that once captivated everyone around her seemed even more potent now, as if the years had honed it to perfection. There was a magnetic quality to her, an effortless charisma that commanded attention without trying. And as Skylar approached, Janet felt that familiar pull, the same one that had always made her feel like she was just one step behind Skylar. Skylar stopped just a few feet away, her eyes never leaving Janet's. There was a strange mix of emotions flickering in those eyes. Recognition, curiosity, maybe even something deeper that Janet and Skylar both only knew. Janet's mind was a whirlwind of emotions, but she forced herself to stay composed, even as her heart hammered against her chest. Finally, Skylar broke the silence, her voice as smooth and self-assured as Janet remembered. "Janet Amari," she said with a hint of a smile, her tone warm yet carrying an undercurrent of something more. "It's been a long time." Janet swallowed hard, trying to find her voice.
Skylar, I didn't expect to see you here.
Her words felt inadequate, but it was all she could manage in the moment. Peter glanced between Janet and Skylar, sensing the tension but still confused.
Janet, do you know her?
Skylar's smile widened slightly, but her eyes remained locked on Janet's. "You could say that," she replied, her tone laced with a familiarity that made Janet's skin prickle. "We go way back." Janet's mind was racing, trying to figure out why Skylar was here, of all places, at this moment. It felt like the universe was playing some cruel joke on her, dragging up the past just when she started feeling secure in her present. With Irvin. But before she could say anything more, Skylar tilted her head slightly, her gaze softening as she studied Janet. "You look different," she remarked, almost as if she were trying to decipher what had changed in all these years. Janet held her ground, though she could feel her resolve weakening under Skylar's scrutiny.
A lot has changed,"
she replied, her voice firmer now, though her hands trembled slightly at her sides. Skylar nodded slowly, her expression unreadable. "Yes, it has." She paused, as if weighing her next words carefully. "But some things never do." The statement hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning, and Janet felt a surge of emotion she hadn't expected. Anger, fear, maybe even a touch of exposure that she was trying to hide. Finally, Skylar glanced around, taking in the bustling set. "So this is your world now," she said, almost to herself, before her gaze returned to Janet. "I'm glad you found your place." The words were simple, but they carried a weight that Janet couldn't quite decipher. Before she could respond, Skylar turned slightly as if ready to move on, leaving Janet standing there, torn between confronting the past and protecting the life she had built. But as Skylar started to walk away, Janet felt a pull in her chest, an urge to say something, anything, to break the tension that had built between them.
Skylar, wait!
She called out, her voice wavering but determined. Skylar paused, looking back over her shoulder, her eyes meeting Janet's once more. Janet hesitated for a moment, then took a deep breath, steeling herself.
Why are you here?
Skylar's expression softened, and for the first time, Janet saw a flicker of vulnerability in her eyes. "I'm here for the same reason as you, Janet." She spoke softly, but a smile slowly spread across her face. "To find something, or someone, I thought I'd lost." Then she paused as if deep in thought. "Wait, forget it. Your reason is different." With that, Skylar turned and walked away, leaving Janet standing there. Her answer answered everything. As Janet watched Skylar disappear into the crowd, Janet realized that whatever history they shared wasn't as buried as she had thought, and that this encounter was just the beginning. Inside the makeup tent, Janet's fists remained clenched, her knuckles white with tension. Emily worked quietly, applying makeup with careful strokes, but Janet's focus was elsewhere, her eyes darting repeatedly toward the tent's exit.
Peter, what took you so long?
Janet snapped, unable to contain her anxiety any longer. Peter hurried in, slightly out of breath.
I'm here, geez.
Without hesitation, Janet stood up and grabbed Peter's arm, her grip tight.
Who is Skylar? Why is she here?
Peter hesitated, sensing the urgency in her voice.
She's the author of this drama, Lar Decats.
The words hit Janet like a ton of bricks.
What?
She gasped, her legs giving out as she collapsed back into her chair. Her mind raced, unable to process what she had just heard.
All these years, I thought I had the upper hand.
Janet whispered more to herself than to Peter.
She disappeared and I thought she'd moved on, that I was finally free of her. I built everything, my entire career, just so I could be close to Irvin. And now, she's been in control all along. How did I not see this coming? This can't be happening.
Peter knelt beside her, his expression a mix of concern and confusion.
Janet, take a breath. We'll figure this out.
Janet shook her head, her thoughts spiraling.
I don't understand. How could she be the one pulling the strings all this time? I was so sure she was out of the picture.
Her voice wavered, a rare crack in the composed exterior she always maintained. Emily, who had been quietly watching the exchange, gently set down her brush.
Janet, maybe this isn't what it seems. Maybe Skylar's just here for the project, nothing more.
But Janet's mind was already racing ahead, imagining the worst.
What if this is her way of getting back at me? What if she's here to ruin everything I've worked for?
Her eyes darted to Peter, searching for answers he didn't have. Peter sighed, trying to maintain calm for both their sakes.
Janet, you've worked hard to get where you are. No one can take that away from you, not even her. We'll deal with this one step at a time. For now, we need to focus on the shoot.
Janet looked at him, the weight of his words slowly grounding her. She nodded, albeit reluctantly.
You're right, I can't let this throw me off. Not now.
She took a deep breath, trying to steady herself.
But I have to know what she's planning, Peter. I can't let her have her way with Irvin.
Peter nodded, understanding the underlying fear in her words.
We'll find out. But for now, you need to be the Janet Amari everyone knows. The unstoppable one. We'll face Skylar together, whatever she's planning.
Janet straightened in her chair, the familiar determination returning to her eyes.
I've come too far to let her or anyone else take this from me.
She glanced toward the tent's exit, her resolve hardening.
If she wants a game, I'll show her who's in control now.